Joining me now with his take is founder and CEO of Florida's Voice, Brendon Leslie. It's great to have you.
Tomi, I appreciate you for having me on.
So we got a lot to get into, but I want to start off with this DeSantis-Newsom debate. I think it's probably going to go down this fall. I mean, all indications is that both of them want to do it, so it's just a matter of agreeing on the details here and there. But do you think that this is a smart move for Governor DeSantis, who is running for president, and Gavin Newsom, who is running for president but hasn't made it official yet?
I think it's actually a brilliant move by Team DeSantis, because if you think about it, what's the one thing Donald Trump does better than Ron DeSantis? It's dominate the headlines. This is going to be like the most watched, viewed debate in American political history between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom. And I think it's genius. It's a good timing, too, because if you think about it, we got the main RNC debate coming up in August. So that's going to dominate the headlines. And then you kind of need something to carry you over into the first primary, which is in Iowa on January 15th. And this would be like November, closer to December, maybe. So it's a good momentum wave to continue into Iowa. And DeSantis needs to show up. He needs to have one of his greatest performances. He can't have a similar debate to what he had with Charlie Crist during the gubernatorial general election debate. But I think overall, brilliant move. And it really could pay huge dividends if done right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also for Gavin Newsom, it's laughable to me that he's still trying to convince us that he is not running in 2024. I mean, there is no reason to put out a proposition of a constitutional amendment, to be going around to red states essentially campaigning, to have an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News. There's just no other reason for it beyond running for president in 2024. Now, he can't admit that yet because they still have to let this Joe Biden song and dance play out. But I firmly believe that he's going to be the nominee in 2024 for Democrats. And I got to tell you, I'm very concerned that if our nominee is Donald Trump and their nominee is Gavin Newsom, I'm very concerned that as much as we don't want to make America California, I'm very concerned that Gavin Newsom is going to be able to win over hearts and minds for those that don't live in California and just see somebody who is somewhat well-spoken, obviously young and vibrant. I'm very concerned if that ends up being the case.
Yeah, if it's Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump, the roles kind of reverse for the GOP and DNC. If it's DeSantis against Biden, we have that argument in our favor. But Gavin Newsom, Republicans need to be careful. They can't count that guy out. They can't be complacent with him. He's intelligent. He knows what he's doing. He's an intelligent communist, I like to say. And he knows how to preach to the choir and really pull on the emotional strings of people. And that plays out a lot differently on a national stage than it would, say, in a state level. I mean, we see the results with Florida and California. Gavin Newsom is definitely the #1 U-Haul salesman for Florida. So many Californians have fled to Florida, but it's just different on a national stage. There's a huge swath of voters right there in the middle that really don't care about that partisan politics stuff. They care about gas prices. Can my kids go to school safely? Stuff like that, the emotional stuff. So like I said with Newsom, you really can't count him out. He's intelligent.
He's definitely intelligent, and he makes me very nervous. I lived in California for several years. I know a lot about Gavin Newsom. I know about the way that he governs, but I worry that those that don't live in California, they are unaware of his tricks. They are unaware of his smooth talking. I mean, even watching him with Hannity a couple of months back, very concerned, because even watching it, not liking Gavin Newsom, I almost for a second there liked Gavin Newsom. So that is terrifying to me because he's very good at that. He's very Obama in that way. I want to move on now to talk about DeSantis and Trump. So obviously we've got 3 indictments for Donald Trump at this point, maybe a 4th on the way. I mean, I've lost count at this point, but he's way ahead in the polls. So I want your perspective on it. You are in Florida. You see what's going on with DeSantis at, the ground level there. I want to know if your perception of everything is that the polls are accurate. Trump really is that far ahead, or do you think that we're missing something when it comes to reading this, maybe even as we edge closer to primary season?
I definitely think it's Donald Trump's race to lose. Now, with that being said, I don't think he is firmly in the lead like the polls would suggest. Why else would Donald Trump spend $20 million attacking Ron DeSantis? Ron DeSantis is a threat. I just think, for whatever reason, their campaign kind of got overwhelmed at the start. And that was a hole that they dug. Everything was executed very poorly. And they hired too many people, spent too much money, stuff like that. They seem to got a grip now. And also the media his perspective with the media. He was kind of going at it with just Republicans, friendly media. But when you're on the national stage, you need to be able to go in front of every single journalist and be able to educate every single journalist on a national stage to sway some voters. So things like that really hurt the governor. But there's a belief out there that he has a very real chance in Iowa. And that's why you see him every single day doing these events, these small events where he can meet with voters face to face. And if he does take Iowa, I think it's a make or break. Iowa's make or break. If he wins Iowa, that could give him some momentum into New Hampshire, and there's a chance for him to win. But if he doesn't win Iowa, I think it's Donald Trump's race. But the polls a little what is it, just exaggerating it a little bit.
Right. So when we look at this, though, and this has been my concern for months now, we've got Donald Trump, who every time he's indicted, he goes up in Republican polls. And right now he's in a dead heat with Joe Biden. People think that's so great that they're in a dead heat right now, at least when it comes to general election polls. I don't. I think that's laughable. I think that's sad. There is no reason that a living, breathing human being should be in a dead heat with Joe Biden, who not only is dang near a vegetable, but who has scandals left, right, and center, who has run this country into the ground. I mean, there really is nothing positive about Joe Biden whatsoever, and his vice president even worse. So to me, I don't think we should be celebrating that the hypothetical matchup shows a dead heat between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I'm not satisfied with that. Are you?
It's horrible. It really is horrible because Joe Biden is probably like the most disapproved president in American history. But it goes to show you that huge swath of voters in the middle that don't care about the hyper-partisan politics that Donald Trump only talks about. It turns them off. And so many people in that middle pool of voters that are going to decide the election are like, I just hate Donald Trump's personality. I hate this hardcore Republican partisan policies. So I'm just going to vote for Joe Biden, whatever. It's so unfortunate because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is far better than Joe Biden. But if he doesn't get out of his own way, he's going to hurt himself with those middle voters. And you're going to continue to see this dead heat. That's what the argument is for Ron DeSantis and why he should be the one to take on Joe Biden, because here in Florida, he won over so many middle ground voters. And that goes back to the earlier point of like, what's going wrong? He hasn't been campaigning the way he was in Florida and winning those middle voters. He's starting to now. He's starting to show his intelligence and how he cares about parents. So that was the argument for Ron DeSantis, that he can win over those middle voters despite being very conservative.
Yeah, see, that's also my concern, is that Donald Trump is sucked so much air out of the room that it's been rather unfair for Ron DeSantis, because he's had to spend all of his time on defense from his own party, and none of the other Republican contenders have had to deal with that. I mean, Donald Trump, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think outside of Mike Pence, he's taken a swipe really at anybody, not a legitimate swipe at anybody. It's really only been Ron DeSantis, and Ron DeSantis, every time Donald Trump gets in legal trouble, Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters believe that Ron DeSantis should just drop out and support Trump, or Ron DeSantis should just donate his money to Donald Trump. I mean, there's this insane desire for DeSantis just to be so loyal to Donald Trump, and that's really hurt him because he has to walk a very fine line. He can't piss off Trump supporters, but he also has to go after Trump. Otherwise, there's no way that he can prove to the American people that he's strong enough to go after Joe or Kamala or Gavin. So I'm very concerned. Do you think that the average American, the independent voter that we talk about, do you think that they care that Donald Trump's been indicted 3 times?
Oh, I think they absolutely care. To me personally, I think independent voters look at these indictments and they're just like, stop with this. I'm done. I talked to a couple political consultants that really don't have any skin in the game. They kind of give me their analysis of this. They think it could help him. They think there's a lot of Americans out there, even like middle ground voters, that have one way or another, whether it be large scale or very small scale, such as something as like a traffic ticket, have been wronged by our judicial system in America. So maybe that resonates with them and that can help Donald Trump. I think that's a fair argument. To me personally, I think that they're just kind of sick of it. It's over. Like the magic of 2016 isn't there as it is. And with Ron DeSantis, you're right. He has 2 fronts he's fighting. He's got to win over those middle ground voters, and he also cannot alienate the Trump voters because he needs them to win. But in order to take down Donald Trump, something that he really hasn't done, he needs to fight hard and go at Trump hard and really show that he is the alternative choice. That's another thing that I hope to see from him more going forward.
I think that this Republican debate on August 23rd is going to be a big opportunity. If Trump indeed doesn't show up, I still think he's going to show up at the last minute because I don't think he could possibly contain himself from being on a stage with that many eyes. So I think he's going to show up. But as of now, he says he's not showing up. So I think this is a real opportunity for Ron DeSantis to take center stage and get some spotlight and show the American people what he's about. So it's a big opportunity. It really is make or break for him as well. I want to turn to some other Florida news, and that is, I mean, DeSantis versus everybody. DeSantis versus Kamala. So I've been following you on Twitter. Obviously, I know that you had a lot of commentary on this. It's very similar to my own. The whole thing about the new curriculum as it relates to the study of slavery and African American history in this country. You know, that line about possibly slaves having something to their benefit. That's been a big to-do, and it's divided. Obviously, we know that Democrats are ferocious about it, but even some Republicans like Congressman Byron Donalds have spoken out about it. Do you think that DeSantis, by not backing down, do you think he played that correctly?
I got a lot of perspective for this one. I think, first of all, why did we ever choose to use the word benefit in the slave? I know they're not saying slaves, Black people benefited from slavery. We all know that. We know the truth, but it doesn't matter. You served up the Democrats a silver platter to come after us. But with all that being said, I think DeSantis won that battle because, first of all, it's Kamala Harris. No one likes her. She's an idiot. And second of all, we're talking about what is the one thing Donald Trump does better than Ron DeSantis is dominate headlines. During that time, who was dominating the headlines despite the news of the third indictment coming against Donald Trump? It was Ron DeSantis. And then it served up Ron DeSantis his one of his shining moments so far campaigning for president was when he got questioned about it. It was in front of the Never Back Down bus in Iowa, I believe. And he just put the reporter in his place. It was classic Ron DeSantis, just like with the Don't Say Gay law, the ridiculous narrative with that and him putting reporters in his place. That was the stuff that voters love for Ron DeSantis. So I think Team DeSantis, despite me disagreeing with using that word benefit and honestly agreeing with Byron Donald's assessment, they're robust, they're good standards for the curriculum. Just maybe don't use that word so that we don't like serve the Democrats an easy platter to fight us on. But in the end, Team DeSantis won that, and Ron showed why he's a fighter and he doesn't back down.
I think that's the key, is that he has shown that he has a backbone. And I think those that were nervous about him potentially not having a backbone, I think that this just further proves that he in fact does. He didn't back down from Disney. He hasn't really backed down to Donald Trump. He's not backing down to Kamala or even Republicans who criticize him. So I think that that's going to be important for him. Next thing I want to talk about is your great state of Florida. I know that there's been also some headlines. Democrats are ready to take back Florida. They've got, a lot of fire and gusto. They think that it's going to be the opportunity to make Florida blue. Do you think that that's likely to happen in the next several years?
I think it's one of the funniest, dumbest, most pathetic reaches of a line that the media can ever push. Is there going to be a slight digression? You're going to see a couple more state representatives go blue. Yeah, because I think we went so far right that there's always a little bit of a, we're going to come back a little bit down to reality. But Florida is very safe from the Democrats, and Florida over and over and over again proves if you have good election laws, if you ban ballot harvesting, you get rid of insecure drop boxes, you make sure IDs are required for voting, you have an election police integrity force, you hold people accountable. Democrats can't just prop up candidates like Charlie Crist and win. When there's actual laws in place like we have here in Florida under Governor Ron DeSantis, Republicans win time and time again. It really should be the model for the nation. So Democrats know that here. The big donors, they're not pouring any money into Florida. They got Nikki Fried of all people leading their party here in Florida. You're going to see a couple state house seats go back to Democrats, but they're going to maintain supermajority in both chambers. They're going to maintain majority across the cabinet. And the one little thing that doesn't get talked about enough here in Florida is that Governor Ron DeSantis, the cabinet, both chambers, leadership in both chambers, the Republican Party of Florida, they all work together and pour in an immense amount of resources into voter registration efforts and those grassroots efforts, those jobs that Scott Presler, the amazing Scott Presler, does all the time. Florida does that the best here in America, and that's why this state is going to stay red for at least the next 10 years.
To me, the indication, and when I first started getting very excited about a potential DeSantis run for president, was after midterms when I saw Miami-Dade go red for Ron DeSantis. That to me was a big indicator that this man can pull votes that other Republicans might not be able to pull, the way that Donald Trump, in fact, did in 2016, and people were shocked over. But I think also if he's able to get Hispanic Latino voters, I think that's going to be a big testament to his voting bloc and being able to expand this party, something that we desperately need. So we're going to have to wait and see. I just want it to be a nomination, not a coronation. And I just want people, instead of being so tribal and instead of just feeling that they have to support somebody due to loyalty, I wish that there was loyalty first to this country and then to a particular candidate. I hope we can get there. But good luck in Florida. You know, thank God that you guys are fighting the good fight, keeping it red, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Hey, I appreciate it, Tommy.